Back to channel. We are in our cardiac physiology. So today we are going to start our properties of cardiac muscle. Mm. So first let us start with some important terms in according to our textbook Guyton chapter 30. So first we need to discuss the bathmotropy. So it's mainly relating to the excitability, that is a positively bathmotropic agent increases the excitability, while a negatively bathmotropic agent reduces excitability. Excitability, you know that excitable cells are like which can allow the potential action potential to pass through them. So this is nothing but bathmotropy. So if they're positive bathmotropic agents means they can allow this excitability component, whereas negatively bathmotropic means it will not allow that. Now let us see inotropy. Inotropy is mainly relating to the force of contraction. Mm, positive inotropic agent increase the force of contraction, while a negative inotropic agent reduces the force of contraction. So inotropy is mainly related to contraction and bathmotropy is related to the excitability. So if it is having a contraction property, then it is positive inotropic. If it doesn't have, or if it decreases the that is contraction factor, then it is called as negative inotropic agent. Now let us see the Frank Starling laws of heart, which is very important. So this mainly states that the force of contraction of heart is always directly proportional to the end diastolic volume and the pressure within its physiological limit. That is, the contraction of heart contraction is directly proportional to the force of contraction. Uh, is directly proportional to the end diastolic volume. End diastolic volume means already the amount of blood which is remaining, that is called as end diastolic volume. We'll see all those in detail in our lesson. Now let us see what is syncytium. So syncytium is nothing but a collection of cardiac muscle cells which are joined by intercalated discs that allow the entire collection to contract as a single unit. Mainly this is the keyword here. Syncytium means to contract as a single unit, because if you see the cardiac muscle, you can understand it is having intercalated disc, right? So those intercalated discs are nothing but you can see here, this intercalated disc are nothing but the gap junctions between one myocyte of a cardiac heart to other cardiac myocyte. So that is mainly appearing as an intercalated disc. So if the all, you can say, a collection of cardiac muscle cells joined by intercalated allow the entire collection to contract as a single unit. And there are mainly two types of syncytia: atrial syncytia and ventricular syncytia. Means, in heart we have atrium, ventricle. In atria they have own their syncytium, in ventricle they have, and these both are separated from a fibrous band. In that fibrous band only we have our AV bundle, which holds the current for about 0.1 second. So we'll see all those things. So heart mainly have three types of cardiac muscles. The one is atrial muscle in the atria, ventricular muscle, this both together one muscle. And the second type of cardiac muscle is a specialized excitatory muscle. Our SA node, it is a pacemaker. It can originate its action potential itself without any help of nervous system. And conductive muscle fibers are nothing but our bundle fibers, Purkinje fibers, which are present in our ventricle mainly. So those are the conductive muscle fibers. So we have mainly three types of muscles in cardiac muscle. So the first one is atrial and ventricular muscle, and the second one is specialized excitatory, and the third one is conductive muscle fibers. So this atrial and ventricular muscle mainly contract the same way as a skeletal muscle, except the duration of contraction is higher when compared with the skeletal muscle. So you know how the skeletal muscle contracts, they forms the cross bridges between actin and myosin, so that the contraction takes place. We know this all thing. So the same thing is similar to atria and ventricle, but the only difference is that the contraction is very much higher to the atria and ventricle when compared with the skeletal muscle. And specialized excitatory, it contract weakly means feeble, weaker. It contract weaker due to decrease in contractile fibers and exhibit the automatic rhythmical electrical discharge in the form of action potential or conduction of action potential by the heart, providing excitatory system that controls the rhythmical beating of the heart. So they are saying that this specialized excitatory is weak because it has low contractile fibers, so it mainly forms its rhythmical automatic action potentials. And next we have our conductive muscle fibers. So mainly cardiac muscle fibers are arranged in a lattice work with the fibers dividing, recombining, and then spreading. So you can see here how the fibers, they look like dividing. Sometimes you can see they like dividing, and lattice work with fibers dividing, recombining, and then spreading. You can see again they are recombined, again spreading. So this is means if you see like an overview of cardiac muscles, they appear to be like that. So cardiac muscle is striated in the same way like a skeletal muscle, and they have the typical myofibrils which contain actin and myosin, and they lie side by side, and they slide during the contraction similar to a skeletal muscle. And now let us see the characteristics of a cardiac muscle. So they are excitable, right? And that is the ability to respond to a stimuli, that is to change in the membrane potential and also contraction also obtained. So the factors affecting this excitability are called as mainly bathmotropic factors. Just now we have seen this. So the factors which increase the excitability are positive bathmotropic, which reduce the excitability are negative bathmotropic. So autorhythmicity, that is the cardiac muscles also show autorhythmicity. Autorhythmicity, they can own produce the rhythms, that is a cardiac muscle self-excitatory but can be regulated by the nervous and hormonal and also ducts. Yeah, even though we say that heart is self producing its action potentials, but it can also be it is also controlled by our nerves, hormones and also different types of drugs. So it's contractile. Yeah, cardiac muscle is contractile, and inotropy refers to the force of contraction. So the factors which increase the contraction are positive inotropic, and which decrease of course are negative. We already completed this. So it can conduct the electrical impulses mainly by intercalated discs. So these are what which are very important playing role. Intercalated discs are nothing but the gap junctions. So by the means of these gap junctions from one cell, they're like windows, right? So they can move from this action potentials like the wave of repolarization just goes to the by this gap junction enter into the other cell. There also it gives a threshold stimulus so that this wave of repolarization just continues. So like this, heart works as a single unit because of this gap junction. So it plays as a functional sensation, very important point. So this is how impulses are conducted. And remember that the speed with which the impulse is conducted are slow in the heart. So slow conductions, but can pass as a sensation because of intercalated disc or gap junctions. So it's a sensation. The dark areas crossing the muscle fibers are called intercalated discs. At each intercalated disc, the cell membrane fuse with one another in such a way to form the communicating junctions. Those are the gap junctions, which allow the rapid infusion of ions. So action potentials move from the one cell to the other easily intracellularly. So it acts as a sensation. So two types of sensation: atrial sensation which involves two atrial walls, ventricular sensation which involves two ventricular walls. So between the atria and ventricle there is a fibrous tissue which can't pass the potentials but is allowed mainly by the specialized AV bundle. We know this. So this division mainly leads to earlier contraction of, so why we need this AV bundle and why it's stopping the potential for 0.1 seconds is mainly the reason behind it is we need actually the earlier contraction of atria than the ventricular contraction, because till that time the ventricle will get filled and even atria also will be completely filled, so that first the atria contracts, then that blood comes to the ventricle. So that's the mechanism. So it also follows all or none law, which applies to entire sensation. When only the stimulus or threshold or above the threshold is given, then the whole heart contracts as an entire sensation. All or none, when it's like not half action potential is done, half it is stopped, not like that. If once the stimulus is reaching the threshold, then completes the action potential. If there is no stimulus, not action potential. So it will be like that. Means we can't say that half action potential has completed, half of it is done. So it's not half, it will complete its work completely. So it is called all or none. All or none means all, either will complete completely or none, it will not do any action potential. That's the meaning. So action potential in the heart is mainly prolonged. Why it is prolonged, you can understand. It has a plateau. We'll see that plateau, all those things in our next lesson. So action potential in heart is mainly prolonged and has a long refractory period. Long refractory period means the resting time, you can say, means between one action potential to the other, before the stimulus is given, that time is called as refractory period. And after the initial spike, the membrane remains depolarized for 0.2 seconds, which creates a plateau. Yeah, it's exhibiting a plateau. So followed at the end of plateau by a abrupt repolarization. So this is a normal action potential, but the only difference between the skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle action potential is that in the cardiac muscle action potential we can clearly find out the plateau of 0.2 seconds, but in a skeletal muscle there is no plateau, just directly depolarization followed by repolarization. So the presence of this plateau in the action potential causes the ventricular contraction to last as much as 15 times as long in cardiac muscle as in skeletal muscle. So in cardiac muscle, the ventricle contraction is holding 15 times more because of this plateau formation, and it is a refractory to restimulation. Yeah, this is nothing but also called as refractory period. This plateau which is forming, this also it is a refractory to the restimulation. So this refractory is mainly during which normal cardiac impulse can't re-excite already excited area of a muscle. So once a muscle is refractory period is like whenever it is going into rest. Once it is stimulated, we by giving any other stimulus also it will not move, just it will be in the rest. That is you can see here, during which the normal cardiac muscle can't re-excite already excited area of a muscle. So there's additional relative refractory period of 0.05 second, during which the muscle is more difficult to excite than the normal, but can be excited by very strong excitatory stimulus. That is absolute refractory period. Absolute means it will absolutely be in rest. Either you give how much strong stimulus, it will not move. That is called as absolute refractory period. And the refractory period of atrial muscle is shorter than the ventricle, like about 0.15 second, whereas for the ventricles it's 0.25 to 0.30 seconds. You can see the refractive period of atrial muscle is low, that is 0.1 second, but for the ventricles the refractive period is 0.25 to 0.30, means the ventricles refractive period is greater than the atrial refractive period. That is what they mean to say. So now we are moving on to end of our video, the last part. Yeah, interesting. So the cardiac muscle mainly requires calcium to be present in the extracellular fluid, mainly to help in contraction. So here consider the cardiac muscle mainly requires calcium. Calcium is actually more in extracellular fluid. So to contract, so for the contraction of cardiac muscle, even like a skeletal muscle, even it needs a calcium. So calcium is actually more in extracellular fluid when compared with intracellular fluid. Even in the intracellular fluid also, especially in a sarcoplasm, we have a calcium loaded. So action potential, yeah. So first calcium is needed. With the help of calcium, the action potential is formed. The action potential next travels to the T transverse tubules, same like a skeletal muscle, and from this T transverse tubules, it move on to the longitudinal sarcoplasmic reticulum. From the sarcoplasmic reticulum, there is release of calcium into sarcoplasm. Sarcoplasm is nothing but cytoplasm in a cell, but in our endoplasmic reticulum, in the case of muscles, we say sarcoplasm. So reach into sarcoplasm, and calcium ions diffuse into myofibrils and catalyze the chemical reaction to promote the sliding of actin and myosin, same like skeletal muscle. So actin and myosin form the cross bridges which lead to muscle contraction. So this is same action which is going on in a skeletal muscle, but here there is more amount of calcium required in extracellular fluid for a cardiac muscle contraction. So the excitation contraction coupling is same as a skeletal muscle. Excitation contraction, first excitation means to produce an action potential. So because of this action potential, the contraction is taking place. Just now we are seeing action potential is formed, calcium is released from the sarcoplasm, this process continues, finally form a contraction of a muscle. So from the calcium ions also, yeah, what calcium ions also diffuse to the sarcoplasm from the T tubules themselves at the time of action potential, which opens the voltage dependent calcium channels. What they are saying, calcium ions diffuse into the sarcoplasm from the T tubules themselves at the time which opens the voltage dependent calcium channels in the membrane of the T tubule, and the calcium enter the cell, then activate the calcium release channels, also known as iodine receptor channels, which are present in the sarcoplasmic membrane, same like our skeletal muscle, and this triggers the release of calcium into, again extra calcium is coming even by iodine receptors. So actually because from the T tubules also the calcium is getting released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and already because of contraction there is lot of calcium. So now we can understand the muscle will, that is our cardiac muscle, will continually contract because there is already lot of calcium in a cell now by the iodine receptors. Now again the calcium load is increased. So calcium bind with the troponin, mainly troponin C. We have mainly T types of troponin: troponin T, troponin I, troponin C. So you can remember like a game called tic tac, right? Tic tac toe, tic tac. You can remember like this because troponin T, troponin I, troponin C. Troponin D binds with tropomyosin, troponin I binds with actin, troponin C binds with calcium. So like this you can remember them. Tic tac toe games, right? So you can remember like that. So now you can say calcium binds with troponin, but which troponin? Mainly troponin C, remembering the tic tac. So in the sarcoplasm, yeah, of course, then to initiate the cross bridge formation and contraction by the same mechanism as skeletal muscle. So sarcoplasmic reticulum of cardiac muscle is less developed than the skeletal muscle and doesn't store enough calcium to provide the full contraction. So the T tubules, which are 5 times greater than the skeletal muscle, that is 25 times greater volume, mainly now you can understand T tubules play very important role for storage of calcium in our cardiac muscle when compared with the skeletal muscle. So also inside T tubules large quantity of mucopolysaccharides which are negatively charged and bind the abundant calcium, keeping them available for contraction. So now you can understand. Hmm. For example, I'll draw a diagram. So this is a cardiac muscle and this is a T tubule, right? This is a T tubule. Here we have a sarcoplasmic reticulum. So here there is a mucopolysaccharide. This mucopolysaccharide is negatively charged. It binds the calcium here. So because of this, this calcium is released here into the cell, and this in turn leads to ryanodine receptor activation. So this release from sarcoplasmic reticulum calcium. So now we can understand there is lot of calcium inside. Actually it should be outside, but because of this process, because of action potential which is triggered, it is bringing more calcium inside. So more calcium, this leads to, you can understand, calcium bind with troponin C. If it bind with troponin C, it will take out the mask of, you can understand this diagram, right? Like this it will happen. So this cross bridges are formed like this. Yeah, we know this from our skeletal muscle. So because of more calcium bind with troponin C. Because of this they form the cross bridges. So this cross bridges finally lead to the contraction. Because of binding with troponin C to the calcium, it removes the tropomyosin. Because of removing the tropomyosin, the actin binding sites get activated with the myosin. So myosin binding sites, so myosin actin get finally contact. So this is a process we know already in skeletal muscle. Just I'm giving a review. So to remember that the T tubules store the calcium with the help of mucopolysaccharides in a cardiac muscle. So abundant calcium keeping them available for contraction. The strength of contraction depend on the calcium availability in the extracellular fluid. So cardiac muscle contraction mainly depends on the initial length of the muscle also. Initial length of the muscle, this is given by the Frank Starling law of heart, and the degree of tension on muscle when begin to contract is called preload. Preload means how much amount of tension is present beginning to go. Still it's not contracted, just when it thoughts to begin the contraction, means just before the contraction process only, this is called as preload, means the tension which is present in it, while the load against which the muscle exerts contractile force is called afterload. Afterload means the force which is applied against to exert the contract, you can see here, while the load against which the muscle exerts contractile force is called afterload. So preload is end diastolic pressure, as we already seen according to Frank Starling law. Preload, that is the initial tension present before contraction is directly proportional to end diastolic pressure. So preload is end diastolic pressure when the ventricle is filled and greater end diastolic volume, that is the ventricular filling is greater is stretch of cardiac muscle. Yeah, so whenever you can understand, whenever the ventricle is filling, the greater the stretch, that is you can see the cardiac muscle diameter or stretch also increases. That's what they're saying. So this initial increase in length of the muscle results in greater force of contraction, and this is called as Frank Starling law. So increased sympathetic stimulation, increase heart rate in young adult human for normal rate of 70 beats to 180 to 200 and rarely even 250 beats. So because of sympathetic stimulation, how this takes place, mainly we will see the receptors, cyclic AMP, all those is involved, we will see in our next lesson. So sympathetic stimulus can increase, normal heartbeat is 70 beats per minute, but because of the sympathetic stimulation it may increase up to like 250, or you can see 180 to 200. So sympathetic stimulations on also increase the force of heart contraction to a double of normal value. So increase in volume of blood pump and increase in ejection pressure. So the sympathetic stimulation on always increase the maximum cardiac output as much of twofold to threshold. Yeah, twofold to threefold, and in addition to increase in the output caused by the Frank Starling law. Already Frank Starling law you can understand, it is stretching, increasing the cardiac out, stretching the heart. In addition to Frank Starling law, when the sympathetic stimulus is working, then you can understand there is lot more increase in the cardiac output. So next, inhibition of sympathetic nerve to the heart decreases the cardiac pumping to moderate extent, and normal sympathetic nerve always maintain the pumping at 30%, above which there is no stimulation. When decrease below normal, decrease both heart rate and strength of ventricular muscle contraction. So this in turn decreases the level of cardiac pumping as much as 30% below. So even though sympathetic nerves always have a regulatory function of heart, even though it is not stimulated, it always put our pumping of heart above 30% above the normal. So even if decrease in the level of cardiac pumping as much as 30 below normal if sympathetic stimulation is inhibited. So afterload of ventricle is nothing but the pressure of aorta leading from the ventricle. So afterload is nothing but I said you afterload is nothing but the pressure against which heart works, because here aorta already having lot of pressure and the ventricle now should work against the aortic pressure. So that's what is nothing but afterload of a ventricle is nothing but the pressure of aorta leading from the ventricle. So according to 30 to 6 systolic pressure, yeah, according to diagram, once I'll show you, you can understand. So this diagram we are talking, so about according to this diagram, you can see the systolic pressure is giving the phase 3. So this is a phase 3 which is showing the systolic pressure, and phase 3 curve of volume pressure diagram. Sometimes afterload is loosely considered to be resistance in circulation rather than pressure, and the pressure during filling of ventricle is preload. So that's it, we'll see here. The pressure during filling of ventricle is preload, and the atrial pressure against which the ventricle must contract is afterload. So are both altered from normal to several degree during abnormal conditions of heart or circulation, like pathological conditions. So cardiac muscle, why it doesn't fatigue? Let us understand this reason. Because of long refractory period, that is because of forming the plateaus, having long refractory period, so it can't be tetanized. You can understand tetanization is seen in our skeletal muscles but not here. So while tetany lead to generation of great force and fatigue, also said the much faster, yeah, for much faster fatigue when a muscle is tetanized. So cardiac muscle have higher blood supply and its capillary density is also very high, so it can't get tetanized, or it is not undergoing the fatigue property, and about 4 times greater than the skeletal muscle. So you can understand cardiac muscle have 4 times greater than skeletal muscle blood supply and also capillaries, so it doesn't undergo fatigue, it is always supplied with blood. And the cardiac muscle don't undergo the process of anaerobic metabolism, it only undergoes the process of aerobic metabolism. You can understand when aerobic metabolism is undergone, there is no lactic acid production or accumulation, so which is mainly seen in anaerobic exercise of muscle causing the fatigue. So you can understand whenever we do lot of exercise, our pathway changes to anaerobic metabolism and lactic acid accumulates and we get muscle pains when we do a lot of exercise, and also you can understand we can undergo the process of fatigue, that is mainly due to anaerobic. But here cardiac muscle always follows aerobic metabolism, so there is no chance of lactic acid accumulation and no chance of fatigue. So cardiac muscle is mainly rich in mitochondria, almost 1/3 of cardiac muscle by weight, and best appreciated by our histological diagrams, we know that. So cardiac muscle is mainly rich in mitochondria. So with that we can complete our lesson. So first we will see at last, sorry, not first, at last we'll see the diagrams once and conclude our chapter. So this is how cardiac muscle looks. It's the syncytial interconnecting nature of cardiac muscle. So we can see these are the intercalated disc in between, and this is the rhythmidal action. Mainly we'll understand this about this in our next lesson very clearly. Now also can understand. So first, so it has with the threshold it has reaches to positive, you can see, because of positive ions inflow, and next it undergoes the plateau condition where both calcium inflow and potassium outflow equalizes. You can understand this better from next video, right? So next again it goes repolarization, and this is the refractory period. So between two stimulus, middle one is the refractory period. So you can see its refractory period is high and also plateau is high, so it will not undergo any fatigue process. So this is how in Purkinje fibers and in ventricular muscle you can see the difference, and here you can see the force of ventricular heart muscle contraction showing duration of refractory period, relative refractory period, plus the effect of premature contraction. Note, premature contractions don't cause wave summation as occurs in skeletal muscle. Yeah, in skeletal muscle summation is seen, but in cardiac muscle there is no summation. So you can see this is a force of contraction per seconds, and this is the refractory period between this repolarization, and this is the relative refractory period. This is early premature contraction, this is later premature contraction. And finally we come to our important diagram, the mechanism of excitation contraction coupling relaxation in cardiac muscle, ATP. Yeah, so we already discussed in extracellular fluid we should have lot of calcium. Because of this, why there is lot of calcium? Because of mucopolysaccharide, which is negatively charged. It holds this calcium outside in the T tubule, you can understand. So because of this, this calcium enters inside. Because of entering of calcium here, it forces the calcium to release from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So it leads to calcium spark. Because of calcium spark, it gives a calcium signals to undergo the process of contraction. So the same thing. Yeah, now we should also understand the reverse mechanism, that is during relaxation. Relaxation, what happens, calcium comes back, by means of Serca pump, right? Sarcoplasmic reticulum, calcium, ATPase, we need ATP because calcium is more inside the sarcoplasmic reticulum when compared with here. So we need to pump it with the help of Serca, with the help of ATP. So, and also we will remove some of the extra calcium by sending it out of the cell. So this is how relaxation takes place, this is how contraction takes place. So this is like almost similar to skeletal muscle. So if you see the skeletal muscle contraction videos of our channel, you can easily get this very easily, because already very well explained there. So you can see the length of the muscle and diastolic volume, modifications of length and force of contraction, relationship by inotropic factors. You can see force of contraction, length of the muscle and diastolic volume. So this is a positive inotropic, for example, increases sympathetic, you see increasing. So positive inotropic, it is negatively because decreasing. It is a normal range. And this we already seen. Once again, let us see. Left ventricular volume, left intraventricular pressure, and different phases. Isovolumetric period of ejections. Yeah, these are all isovolumetric relaxation. This one we will see very clearly, very much detail in our cardiac cycle. And now we have this final box, comparison of skeletal smooth cardiac muscles. So yeah, we know skeletal muscles are striated, and excuse me. So distribution of myofilaments are orderly along the myofibrils. T-tubules are present, yes, in skeletal muscle. Intracellular connections are not there in skeletal muscle. Types of skeletal muscles are slow and fast. And now coming to smooth muscles. In smooth muscles, striated, no. Distribution of myospheres scattered. T-tubules are not present. Some gap junctions may be present, and types unitary, multi-unit. And to our cardiac muscle, yes, of course the striations are present, and the myofibers are arranged orderly manner, and T-tubules are of course present, and many intercalated discs are present as intercellular connections are also gap junctions. So coming to functional features, skeletal muscle, sarcoplasmic reticulum for calcium, and smooth muscle also sarcoplasmic and extracellular fluid. Even in cardiac muscle, sarcoplasmic reticulum and extracellular fluid. Spontaneous electrical activity and contraction, no. In the case of smooth muscle, yes. Of course, cardiac muscle, yes. And duration of action between few milliseconds, here hundreds of milliseconds. Here variable from 100 spike potentials to prolonged with platyphase. And response to rapid multiple stimuli, here skeletal muscle get tetanized, and smooth not be tetanized, even cardiac not tetanized. And susceptibility to fatigue is very high for skeletal. Resistant to fatigue is smooth, and even cardiac is resistant to fatigue. Regulatory response to nerve stimulus is excitation, contraction, excitation or inhibition, here also excitation or inhibition. Here the response to hormones is small, here very large, here also very large. So you can see most of the smooth and cardiac muscles are mostly related with each other. So that's it. If you like our videos, don't forget to like, share and subscribe.